Number 3, this question is going to be looking at Rostow's stages and kind of comparing that with the core-periphery concept of Wallerstein. Letter A, list and describe the stages of Rostow's theory. Again, I'm not going to go into detail on this. You can look this one up in your notes. Pretty self-explanatory. But each of these stages, remember, each country will eventually go through each one of these stages on their ways to technological maturity. But you can go in and you can list and describe the stages because I gave those out to you in the notes. B, compare and contrast the stages of economic growth with the core-periphery model. Now, you're not going to have to identify all of the different stages and the differences with the core-periphery model on this question. Mainly just look at 3. Find 3 that you can compare and contrast and find differences mainly between the two. But I'm going to go ahead and go through a lot of them. I'm going to start with the stages of economic growth, and then each one of them I'll compare with the core-periphery model of Wallerstein. One of the stages, from the stages, it accurately names and describes all 5 stages. Rostow does. Traditional, preconditions for takeoff, drive to maturity, and mass consumption. Core-periphery model accurate names all 3 parts of this system. Core, periphery, semi-periphery. So there's some contrasting there. We got stages versus 3 parts of a system. All right, number 2. National economies developing forward over time, not moving backward. Again, we're going to start with the Rostow. Rostow saying that economies develop and go forward and they don't move backwards. Core-periphery model says that countries are static or they can move backward in development, but they're not going to move up. Number 3, stages of economic growth. This is a national level analysis. Core-periphery model, it's an international level analysis because it's looking at different countries. Number 4, stages of economic growth. Economic change that focuses on a single country. Core-periphery model, economic change that focuses on spatial relationships between countries. For example, trade, interdependence, and interaction. Number 5, stages of economic growth. Uneven global development can be lessened. Core-periphery, uneven global development is a basic characteristic. Number 6, countries fund investment for economic growth internally. Core-periphery model. Peripheral countries are dependent on core countries to finance investment for economic growth. Number 7, international trade may help countries to grow economically. Core-periphery model. International trade strengthens development in core countries, for example, exporting manufactured goods, and it constrains development in peripheral countries, for example, exporting resources. You can tie the maquiladoras in on that one there. Number 8, stages of economic growth does not emphasize the role of colonization and imperialism or neocolonialism. Core-periphery model emphasizes the role of colonialism, imperialism, or neocolonialism. Stages of economic growth, number 9, last one I'm going to give you. It's a Western capitalist or a liberal viewpoint. Core-peripheral model is a Marxist structuralist viewpoint. Letter C, one of the 2 listed models, use one of the 2 listed models to explain economic development in one of the following Latin American countries, Mexico or Brazil. All right, if you took Rostow, you could look at it this way. The takeoff stage, or stage 3, in one of these countries is agriculture is mechanized and commercialized, or manufacturing investment is export-based, maquiladora, or there's a shift from a primary to secondary economic sector. There's a transition, this is stage 2, transition from preconditions for takeoff to takeoff. You can use at least one characteristic that we listed under takeoff for here. Drive to maturity, or stage 4, economic output exceeds population growth rate, or it's increased manufacturing specialization and integration into the global economy, or an increased incorporation of advanced technology. And then your stage 3 to stage 4, transition from takeoff to drive to maturity, you could use at least one of the characteristics that we listed under drive to maturity. Now Wallerstein, semi-periphery or core-periphery model. You would label these as newly industrialized countries, or countries able to exploit peripheral countries, LDCs, but are themselves exploited by the core countries. Make sure that whichever one you choose, that you identify it in detail and not just answer it in a brief word or two. Letter D, provide examples of how the core-periphery model can be applied at a smaller scale than the national level. I'm going to give you a lot of examples. Number one, if we were to look at the core, you can compare that to the central business district, which we'll get to in the next unit, but that's the CBD, central business district. Or there's the periphery as the zone of transition, residential zone, or the suburb zone. Number two, in the core, you look at the city. Periphery, suburb, edge city, or rural hinterland. Number three, with the core, could be a small town. Periphery, remote areas, or rural hinterland. Number four, you look at a political center. Periphery, less powerful center, area, region. Number five, large primate city or metropolitan area. The periphery, small, medium city or non-metropolitan area or region. Number six, populated area or region. Periphery, less populated area or region. 7, productive area or region. Periphery, less developed, impoverished area or region. And number 8, you look at a core state or province. And in the periphery, the peripheral state or province. Make sure that you're specific on these, and if you use one of these examples, make sure you give me real-world examples to fund that. A lot of those are coming from Unit 7, which we haven't got to, but you could pull some Unit 6 out of that if need be.